Emily used to believe that wanting more made her ungrateful, so she kept her dreams quiet, smiled through routine, and convinced herself she was content. Her life was peaceful, predictable, but something inside her had long gone silent. Years passed, and she became the kind of woman who always showed up for others, but never dared to show up for herself. Every morning looked the same. Same job, same bus, same polite small talk. She worked at a small local business, not bad, not brilliant. There were no promotions, no big projects, no growth. But she stayed because it was safe, because chasing her real dream, a luxury beauty salon, felt too risky to imagine. She had settled quietly until life stopped being quiet. Because when you're too afraid to jump, sometimes life gives you no choice but to fall. And what broke her wasn't failure. It was the sudden moment when the life she tolerated disappeared. And for the first time in years, Emily was forced to ask, what if I tried? Emily Carter wasn't unhappy. Or at least that's what she told herself every morning. She worked the front desk of a small service office that smelled faintly of cheap coffee and printer ink. The space was always calm, the same coworkers greeting her with soft smiles and the same customers asking about lost invoices or late packages. No one raised their voice, no one challenged her, and that's exactly why she stayed. She'd been there almost 9 years. The owner liked her, her coworkers depended on her, and she always brought cupcakes on birthdays. It felt safe, familiar. But behind the routine, behind her polite greetings and well-practiced empathy, there was a sense of quiet suffocation she never admitted out loud. She was growing older, but not growing at all. She had learned to celebrate other people's promotions while pretending not to care that hers never came. But the truth? There were no promotions. It wasn't that she wasn't good enough. It was that the company simply had no ladder to climb. And over time, that became her excuse. This is fine, she told herself. Not everyone is meant to do big things. But late at night, in her small apartment with soft jazz playing from the radio, she'd sometimes pull out an old sketchpad from the top of her closet. It was filled with designs for a dream salon, layouts, lighting ideas, names she had tested in her head a dozen times. Velvet Essence. The Mirror Room. She'd imagined soft lighting, fresh flowers, and the scent of lavender shampoo in the air. Once, she almost rented a space. She had visited it 3 times, even taken a photo standing in front of the window with the "For Lease" sign behind her, but she never called. She told herself it was too expensive, too risky. In truth, it was fear. Fear of leaving a life that was comfortable, even if it was quietly killing her spirit. And so she kept showing up to the same office, smiling at the same people, printing the same reports. Emily became the woman who could be counted on for everything, except for fighting for her own dream. And slowly and visibly she faded into the wallpaper of her own life. Emily always believed that if she gave enough, stayed kind enough, and didn't ask for too much, she would be loved in return. Her husband, Marcus, had once admired her for her patience and her calm, but over the years, he stopped seeing her. They sat at dinner without speaking, scrolled their phones in silence, passed each other like shadows in a well-decorated house with no warmth left. One Friday evening, he came home earlier than usual. His voice was too calm. "We need to talk," he said, standing in the doorway. She felt it before he even spoke the words. "I met someone." Her hands trembled as she placed the mug on the table. He continued, "She inspires me. It just happened." Emily didn't cry. She nodded, as if trying to remain composed for both of them. He packed a bag. He kissed her on the forehead. And then he left. She stood in the hallway for a long time, staring at the door he didn't bother to close all the way. The silence in the apartment was louder than any scream. She sat on the floor, her back against the wall, and for the first time in years, she felt empty. Not sad, just erased. Over the next few weeks, she stopped functioning. Her coworkers noticed. Emails went unanswered. She arrived late, left early, and some days didn't show up at all. Her manager, a kind woman named Sheila, called her into the office. "Emily, you've always been the most dependable person here. But something's changed." And I'm so sorry, but we can't keep the position open like this. Emily just nodded. She wasn't even angry, and it almost felt fair. She walked out of the building in slow motion, holding a small box with her things. Some pens, a framed photo, a coffee mug that read, "Be kind." That phrase used to mean something to her. Now, it felt hollow. On the bus ride home, she stared out the window while the city passed her by, her reflection in the glass looking like a stranger. She had no job, no partner, no plan. Just a broken heart and a head full of dreams she once buried. But somewhere in that silence, something shifted. The same sketchbook she'd abandoned months ago called to her like a voice. That night she opened it again, not just to look, but to draw. Her hands shook, her eyes were swollen, but the lines on the page came to life. Her pain hadn't killed the dream. It had just removed everything that got in its way. The morning after she lost everything, Emily woke up later than usual. Her eyes were swollen, her chest still heavy. But for the first time in years, there was silence. No husband to cook for, no office to show up to, just a sketchbook, a cup of coffee, and a question that echoed in her mind. If I were brave, what would I do today? That question led her to a dusty old room in the back of a forgotten building downtown. The paint peeled from the walls. The window was cracked. But the rent was low, and the space was hers. She cleaned it herself, brought in her only makeup chair from home, and hung up a small mirror that used to sit in her bedroom. It didn't look like much, but to her, it felt like freedom. She visited thrift stores to find old furniture and borrowed a small table from a neighbor. She sewed curtains by hand and set up a lamp she'd kept from her college dorm. That week, she filmed a short video on her phone showing the space with a voiceover that said, "Not perfect, but finally mine." She posted it online, not expecting much. But the next day, a stranger messaged her, "When do you open? I'd love to book." The day of her first appointment, Emily arrived 2 hours early. Her hands were shaking as she adjusted the mirror and lit a lavender candle to calm her nerves. The woman who walked in looked exhausted, dark circles, worn-out clothes, and sadness in her posture. Emily didn't just ask what style she wanted, she asked, "How do you want to feel when you leave?" That question changed everything. When the appointment ended, the woman looked into the mirror and broke into tears. "I didn't know I could still look like this," she whispered. Emily felt her own eyes sting. She hadn't just cut hair. She had reminded someone of their worth. That one transformation sparked others. Within a week, Emily was receiving back-to-back messages. Clients brought friends. Someone even left flowers at the door. The buzz kept growing, not because of a marketing strategy, but because of the way people felt in her chair. Safe, seen, beautiful from the inside out. Each night, Emily would close the salon, sit on the floor in the quiet, and cry softly, not out of grief, but gratitude. She didn't have it all figured out, but she had taken the first step. And that step had opened a door she was no longer afraid to walk through. What began as a small local salon soon became the talk of the city. Clients drove from miles away just to sit in Emily's chair, or in one of the chairs she had trained others to fill. Her style wasn't just technique, it was connection. And in a world starved for authenticity, that made all the difference. She reinvested everything she earned, opened a second location, then a third. People started calling her the soul of beauty. What made her stand out wasn't the decor or the trends. It was how women walked out of her salons feeling seen, confident, and unafraid. She wasn't just offering beauty services anymore. She was building self-worth. With growing recognition, Emily launched her own line of beauty products, all natural, empowering, and branded with a simple message: grace in every detail. Her online store took off. Orders came from other states. Influencers began tagging her products, sharing stories of how it wasn't just makeup, it was part of a movement. Soon, she was invited to speak at women's conferences, podcasts, and business panels. And every time she stood on stage, she didn't talk about success. She talked about fear, about settling, about what it means to believe in something again, even if no one else does. And that's why they listened, because she had lived every word she spoke. Emily now employed dozens of women, Many of them were just like she once was, quiet, overlooked, doubting themselves. She trained them not just in beauty, but in bravery. Her salons became safe spaces, where transformation happened inside and out. Her story wasn't just hers anymore. It was becoming fuel for others. And every time she walked into one of her locations and heard the laughter, the music, the energy, she remembered the silence she used to live in. She had settled once, but not anymore. Now she was living proof that when life gives you no choice, it's because you were always meant to choose yourself. If you're watching this and feel stuck, let Emily's story remind you of something important. It's okay to feel afraid. It's okay to have stayed too long in a life that felt comfortable. But comfort without growth is a slow kind of heartbreak. And the truth is, you don't need a perfect plan to start. You just need one moment of courage and the decision not to keep waiting. Whatever your dream is, it deserves your effort. It won't happen overnight, and yes, it might feel impossible at times. But with consistency, planning, and the willingness to show up for yourself, doors begin to open. Don't let fear convince you that you're too late or not enough. The world needs what only you can offer, even if no one sees it yet. Emily wasn't special. She was just like you. But the moment life forced her out of the shadows, she chose not to crawl back. She built a new life with pieces of an old dream. And if she could do it, starting from nothing, you can too. And if you need more proof, don't miss the story we told in our last video. From forgotten to unstoppable. It might be the push you've been waiting for.